was talking on my behalf. An explanatory note about this video. Some types of information, at least political information, isn't available in the mass media. We'll provide a hidden information. The importance of this task, I suppose, it seems to me, can hardly be exaggerated. What do you think about that? About Brazilian politics and a popular perspective and the mass media, Diego? And introduce you.
All right. So, good afternoon for you who are watching us. Good day, whatever. My name is Diego, and we've been talking on several topics. This is the first video video we are recording in English, and the decision is that the decision we made on recording videos in English once per month is to share some information regarding our government and some information that, as Luis has mentioned, are not so much available on mass media communication. You'd probably see some information on Brazilian politics in BBC and other media channels, but as biased as they are, you won't find true and accurate information about the insides of such processes. Um, Speaking of Brazilian politics, well, it's it's complicated because Brazil has a long history of military meddling with internal affairs and policies. And we had the military dictatorship in 1964. We had our democracy back in 1984. But truth is that nowadays the military has once again, come into power. Indirectly, though. This time, the political apparatus is crowded, is packed up with the military, specifically on the head of state, on Mr. Jair Messias Bolsonaro, which was captain in the military, lieutenant, I guess. I don't remember his rank. And the political apparatus of Brazil now is almost entirely composed of army men, not just off-duty army men, but also on-duty army men. We have generals, we have sergeants, we have lieutenants, all in key positions of power. Ministries, political cabinets, political departments, on the lower house, on the upper house, on the parliament. And this is, as I've mentioned before, complicated. This is one of the problems and one of the things we are going to talk about today. The military into political affairs.
It can be summarized this way. If you don't use US media or Reuters agency to ascertain the truth, to unravel the authorities' political movements as their main source of information, don't do the same with regard to Brazil. For example, and this is an important political information with regard to Brazil, the #1 television channel in audience and reach, Global Network, was sponsored by militaries during his dictatorship and by US financial capital. Yesterday, for example, on the coverage of US election, a Global reporter asked to the celebrated writer of how democracies die. Democracy in US is dying, he asked. The answer, it's not yet done. was translated by Globo to Portuguese as "It isn't", não está, referring to the death of democracy in USA. This kind of hoax is a common alibi for the mass media to defend its politics. The bourgeoisie, as Diego said, slide the military forces back and forth upon the legal regime as a guarantee that all remains under his control. Democracy was irreversibly damaged. The money controls the power, and US uh, is a subject matter expert when we talk about coup d'etat. I want to express my deep sense of indebtedness to Bradley Manning, Chelsea Manning, and Edward Snowden, and Julian Assange. They revealed that US is a dictatorship. They were convicted to publish right information about the US government. What do you think about it, Diego?
Well, nowadays it is no secret that the Secret Service of the United States of America has been meddling with political processes all abroad and regarding our own situation in South America specifically. We have the case of Venezuela, one of the most recent cases. We had the case in Bolivia, which is worth of another video entirely on the subject. And regarding Brazil, there's been a long history in cooperation between the American bourgeoisie interests and the Brazilian bourgeoisie interests. I will go back further into the 19th century, when we were still a monarchy. What is important and interesting to notice, and many Americans don't know this, and Brazilians neither. Um, you know, there was the Civil War in the United States. The South lost, and well, basically, if you are American, you know what I'm talking about. They wanted the right to have slaves, and well, it wasn't granted. They lost the war, and surprisingly, the Brazilian government issued an official government program for bringing Confederates to Brazil. The government would give them land for 2 cents the acre. Okay, so you have 2 cents and you earn an acre of land. And many Confederates established themselves in Brazil. This is just an illustration, this is just a picture of how long we have been cooperative with the American bourgeoisie's interests. And now we had, no, not now, so in 1964, when we had our second military dictatorship, the coup was orchestrated behind the curtains by American agents and operatives. And this is not the conspiracy theory, actually. The government has made these papers public, both in the United States and in Brazil. We now know the names of the people who were in charge of this coup. We know the names of diplomats, ambassadors, and many other bureaucrats, U.S. bureaucrats, directly involved in the establishment of the Brazilian military coup. Well, going further, we have our democracy back in 1984. But the American interests, they didn't just vanish, they only disappeared from the public eye. The CIA and the FBI and many other American interest agencies have been operating in Brazil on different governments. The most notable and recent example that we can say, that we can tell, is on the Dilma government. The Dilma government was, I don't remember, what was the date, the year? What was her presidency?
2016.
So, as Luis mentioned, in 2000, we now have public information that the Obama government uh, opened, not opened, sorry, they tapped the official communications of the Brazilian government. They have recorded uh, private talks between the president, between the ministers, among many other major officials. And this is a serious thing. This is no candy. This is no, we're not talking about a simple thing. We are talking about a major foreign power, American power, that that finds themselves they found themselves in the right of officially spying on our country. This was exposed at the time, but not much was done regarding this. And okay, going further into the future, Dilma is deposed in a coup d'état, a complicated process actually, but it was a coup. It was a parliamentary coup, and after that, the extremist right, I'd say the fascist right, or the fascist, in any case, they came to power. They rose to power by the figure of Jair Messias Bolsonaro. As it was mentioned before, Jair Bolsonaro is from the army. He's a retired captain. Not retired, he was expelled. Jair Messias Bolsonaro was expelled from the army because in the 80s he had planned a terrorist attack against one of their bases. This guy, for you who are watching us, this guy is our president. He is a former terrorist agent of the military. And so he rises to power with his political agenda all concentrated in neoliberal policies. With the worst you can imagine in terms of economy, in terms of liberalism and cruel liberalism, and bringing along his fellow military men. Um, this election that got him in the office was, we can say it was a coup. It was an interesting coup because, as you may know, coup d'états don't always come in the most obvious way, which is by weapons, by guns, and by uprisings. There is another very sophisticated method of coup d'états, which is undermining democracy. Undermining democracy, undermining justice, and undermining power, so that the people start not believing in the democratic process. You Americans have been experiencing this during the Trump regency, not administration, I'd call him a regency. And here, what we had was a coup, a soft coup, because the right fascists manipulated information. They manipulated media, such as in the United States, you had fake news. We also had a swarm of fake news. For you, so you have an idea, one of the most popular fake news on the last political cycle was that the opposition candidate um, from the Workers' Party Uh, the fake news said that if elected, he would make mandatory the distribution of baby bottles with a tip in the shape of a penis. Can you imagine this? Can you believe this? The guy, let me get this straight again. The fascist right invented, crafted, fabricated the information that if the left were to be elected, the left would make mandatory the distribution of baby bottles with a tip in the shape of a cock. Really. And people believed in this. This is just one of the fake news that we saw. And speaking of coup again, this was orchestrated. This was not an exclusively Brazilian tactic. We have Steve Bannon. You are pretty much aware of him. Steve Bannon was in charge, indirectly in charge, of the Bolsonaro campaign. You have many photo ops of him alongside Bolsonaro's sons. And you have statements of Bannon saying that he would help with information and help in some other means the Bolsonaro campaign. So, just to round up this topic, to just round this topic up, Bannon had Bannon is an American, so Bannon had direct influence on our last election, such as in the United States, so that it happened here. And because of him, because of the extremist right, because of the fascist right, and the money, the capital, and the political interests of the United States upon Brazil, our forests, our native, our resources, and our sovereignty. Because of all of that, this political project rose into power with the help of the military, which was always the lapdog of the American bourgeoisie.
Seems to be a very simple case, not? We had interference of U.S. government. Capitalists are interested in Brazilian resources. Leaked conversations between Brazilian officials and prosecutors revealed secretive collaboration with the U.S. Department of Justice, leading to the arrest without evidence of former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, the former president and the most popular leader of masses in Brazil. A move that barred him from re-election and paved the way to the election of Bolsonaro. It was orchestrated, as Diego said, by Department of Justice of US, by media, mass media of Brazil, by militaries, by right-wing parties, and as a result of that, there was hundreds and thousands of deaths in Brazil because of the pandemic, because of the COVID-19. The government refuses to fight against the COVID, the pandemic. They make propaganda against masked faces, quarantine. They are promoting chloroquine method to avoid the infection of COVID. Well, we have problems deepest. The trade unions were attacked. by Bolsonaro government. They are receiving no money from workers because of a new policy about trade unions in Brazil. The peasants were being murdered without any protection by the police or the justice, and the government instigated the farmers to kill the poor peasant. There are very problems here in Brazil that allow us to say Bolsonaro government is the first step to a fascist government, and we have to deal with it because of the campaign of US, of mass media, of capitalists, of bourgeoisie, and the popular movement has another problem. The left parties are engaged in some sort of popular front with these sectors responsible to overthrow the Workers' Party government. They don't see that the right wing, not just Bolsonaro and his direct assessors, but the right wing, the traditional right wing, is part of the coup d'etat. They are behind the militaries too. The traditional part of right wing, most popular, if you can say that, PSDB, was the main responsible for the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff and the imprisonment of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. And they have the same politics about minimum wage and liberal economy and selling our main industries and state apparatus. We have to see that it's a combination of traditional right wing and extremist right wing and church and justice and judges like Sergio Moro and the capital. They are firing a lot of workers since the coup d'etat occurred. More than 5 million workers were dismissed since the coup d'etat. And we have no perspective to confront that. We have just one perspective. It's the mass movement moving against the right wing. Do you think that I'm correct? The right wing, the traditional right wing and the extremist right wing are in the same block of power? Or do you think that there is a soft difference between them, or radical difference?
Well, first of all, we have to understand something and a crucial difference in the political system of the United States and the political system in Brazil. The political system of the United States is bipartisan. As you may know, of course, you know you are American, or at least you know about American politics. In the United States, you have two major political powers. which switch their political role from time to time. The Democrats and the Republicans. The Brazilian process, though, is different. We have a multi-party system. That means we have we have more than 30. Yes, you heard right. We have more than 30 parties. Most of them, the majority of them, are self-proclaimed right-wing parties. The others are either centrist or left-wing. But even the left in Brazil is not so much of a left. Um, so that you have an idea, Bernie Sanders would be considered, for Brazilian standards, Bernie Sanders' policies would be considered as far left, perhaps, because our left is far from that. Our left in Brazil, especially in the Workers' Party, our political left has given up for a long time already. Has given up on the fight for the leftist ideals of socialism, communism, and whatever inside of that political ideological spectrum. Well, having this in mind, so let's talk briefly about the political right in Brazil. Um, as you may as you may think, uh, in a country that has more than 10 right-wing parties, there is also a lot of difference between them. Some of them are self-proclaimed Christian parties. Others are self-proclaimed progressive parties, but they are not progressive in the American sense. They are progressive in the means of retrograde, actually. Politically retrograde and conservative, extreme conservatives. So the political right in Brazil is divided in my analysis is divided in three major categories. You have the extremists, you have the really fascists, people that you know when you are walking on the street and you see somebody, you can tell nowadays you can tell by the look of their face, literally, if they belong to this caste, as to speak. Um, there is this extreme right, which are the uh, the rabid dogs of politics. They are against freedom of speech for opposition openly. And actually, the Republicans, they even at least the Republicans try to show, um, let's say, a more sympathetic image of their agenda. But the extreme right in Brazil is not ashamed of showing their true colors. The extreme right in Brazil is openly for censorship, is open, broadly open for um, for eliminating the dissidents, for eliminating the left, for making it a crime to mention the word communism. I know it may sound strange for you to hear and say, but how come these people can publicly say and state and defend these abhorrent ideas? Well, this is the Brazilian political system. Here they have this right. They have the right, as much as the Americans have the right to have the KKK. In Brazil, we have the right of the right saying this kind of thing and advocating for this. There is even a law they want to approve, um, making it a crime to teach about communism and socialism, to make it a crime as much as Nazism is, to criminalize communism ideas, communist ideas, as if they were Nazi ideas. So, this is the radical right in Brazil. It is a rabid right, even more aggressive than the American. If you Americans think that your Republicans are bad, come to Brazil and visit us one day. You will see that it's paradise. The Republicans, compared to our political right, are puppies. Well, that being said, there is another uh, right wing group which is not so much openly radical, but they maintain their neoliberal agendas at all cost. There is a party here named Novo, which translates as new, the new party. Mainly composed by bankers. The founder is a banker, actually. Mainly composed by bankers, high key entrepreneurs, and businessmen, rich people, and so on. They are more close to what you Americans may say libertarians. This right is also quite dangerous because they conceal, they hide the core idea that for neoliberalism, their neoliberalism to work, they have to have um, liberty suppression, suppression of freedom, and they conceal that behind a curtain, behind a beautiful speech of individual liberties. There is a politician here from this party that was advocating. He was saying something like, "Well, why can't I sell my organs? The organs are mine. If I want to make money out of my kidney, why can't I?" There is another one who said, "Well, I have a child. Why can't I have the child working? It's there. It's mine. It's my right. I am their father. Why can't I put my child to work?" Yes, so this is our right. This is an intermediate level. So you saw the extreme, you saw now the intermediate, and then we have the more centrist right. The centrist right also conceals their craving for suppression, and they disguise themselves as, let's say, as your American Democrats. Their speech is all in for civil liberties. It's all in for public investment, but they are all in for outsourcing. So putting your workforce to abroad, yeah? So to produce whatever you make in our country, so make it away. It's cheaper. Let's make in China. Why do we have a state company that makes no profit? We have to privatize everything. So this is our soft right. The soft right is for some of the public achievements, but they want to profit of the state, out from the state. Sorry, out from the state. Okay, we have the centrists. The centrists are a big question mark because they dance conforming to the song. So if it's rock, they dance rock. If it's samba, they dance samba. If it is waltz, they dance waltz. They are we call them the situation party. It's comprised of several parties, but we call them in general, a general term is the situation party, because regardless the government in power, regardless of left or right in power, this group, this coalition is always inside the bureaucratic apparatus and the machine of the state. That is such a powerful political group that they can and actually did change governments from time to time. The coup that we've been mentioning so far couldn't happen without the full support of the centrists, because they earned money, they earned positions, they earned power, um, they earned profits out of the coup. There are several parties in that political spectrum. Now, finally, let's talk about the left. What is left of the left? We also have three groups, and I know that Luis may have a different point of view regarding the political left than mine, so I will say mine. Uh, we have the centrist left, which is represented here by the Workers' Party. The centrist left is concerned with it's just like the, let's say, the moderate Democrats. They are concerned with the bureaucratic machine of the state. They are concerned with welfare. They are concerned with um, and, social programs for the people.
Just a minute. They are concerned, first of all, with his career. They are professional politicians.
Exactly. They are professional politicians. That's another term we have here. They, they are professional politicians. They are concerned with appeasing the center, the political center. They are concerned with appeasing the economic major power, the major economic powers. And so, in the Workers' Party government, you had a boom in bank profit. The banks in Brazil have never ever made so much profit than under a leftist government. Isn't that ironic? Well, this is true. So this is the center left, the Workers' Party, which ruled Brazil for more than a decade. Then we have the first left, the let's say the moderate left. The moderate left could be represented by another party here, which is called PSOL, PSOL, the Party of Solidarity uh, and Socialism and Solidarity. Socialism,
Socialism and freedom.
freedom. Yeah, exactly. Socialism and freedom. The Party of Socialism and Freedom, which is not so much socialist and not so much free. Luis, turn off the mic. I can hear the. Okay, so the I will refer to them as PSOL. Okay, so the PSOL is this party that has many interesting ideas regarding the new left. You may call it a Brazilian perestroika, as to speak. So they are concerned with rebranding the idea of what is left and what is leftism. But at the same time, they we have another term for this. They are cirandeiros. Well, I will try to translate this. Cirandeiro is, when you gather with people and you join hands and you walk in a circle and you sing happily. Yeah, yeah. So let's praise the sun. Yay! Let's praise the moon. Yay! Let's sing to God. Yeah. So this is the cirandeiro. That's the guy. That's a person who performs this kind of thing. So we call them cirandeiros because although they say they are from the left, at the same time they don't bite. They are a toothless dog. They don't bite. They just makes and issue protests, written protests. Ah, so the government has committed an atrocity. Ah, we have the Amazon forest burning in hell. Ah, no, let's write a petition. Ah, no, let's make a note because these can't be left in blank. We have to state our point of view. So this is our left. And the last one, which is the radical left, which is not so much radical, by the way, I would say that is the rest. We have many factions inside of this spectrum. They oscillate between Trotskyist ideas, Stalinist ideas, even North Korean ideas, and Maoist ideas. But now it's my opinion. They are no talk, all talk and no action. They have theories, congresses, they gather, they make reunions, they make meetings, and they debate about history, and that's it. They have no influence on the realpolitik. They have no influence on the political process, at least not in the in a greater scope. Yeah. And so this is our multi-party system. I don't know if it is better and worse than the American bipartisan system, but my polite guess is that it's worse because we, by having so many parties and by having many other mechanisms that make them perpetuate themselves in power, we have a greater illusion of freedom. You see, illusion of freedom, as much as the American illusion of freedom, because freedom is an illusion in our reality, and nobody is really truly free. At least not in a system where there is government. I am an anarchist, so that's what I think. Well, to round up the case, I would like to mention the you've talked in the beginning of your speech. You've mentioned the public health problems that we've faced because of the pandemic. And see, there is another crucial difference here between the American and the Brazilian response. As much as you Americans are concerned, and as much as you Americans are um, regretting how your government has been dealing with the pandemics, at least the guy who's in charge of your crisis is a physician, Dr. Anthony Fauci. He is an immunologist. He knows what he's talking. Trump may not hear him, but at least the guy is from the same fucking area. In Brazil, our Ministry of Health the head of the ministry was changed thrice during the pandemic. Thrice. 3 times. One of the ministers lasted for less than a month, and he was an oncologist. He was a physician. Now, our Minister of Health is a surgeon. He is a mariner. He is not even from the health area. This is a concern, and as we've mentioned, this is also a symptom of that Brazil, that something in the politics of Brazil is really not working, because you shan't have a military man, a military person in charge of health, especially if this person is not even related to the area, not even remotely related. And I guess that's it regarding the pandemic. Now you understand another of our concerns of why why our country is becoming a soft dictatorship. The military is everywhere, even in public health, in the middle of a crisis, a pandemic crisis.
Yes, our situation is chaotic. It's hard to describe, but I won't disagree about a specific point. The US electoral system isn't a good example of democracy. Really, it's the bad example. We had the wars that we have in the world. The electors uh, are not capable to avoid the control of these two parties with the same ideology. In Brazil, the principal parties are converging to the same politics too. We are trying to copy the US politics. It's not a national problem. We see this in almost every nation all over the world. But you have to do something to describe correctly the the standards now in Brazil. An example: the left parties in Brazil, in its struggle against extremist rights, has incorporated public security in its electoral discourse, bearing in mind that Brazilian policy is by far the most lethal in the world. When the left parties defend the police system, the repressive system, this justice who arrested Lula without evidence, who arrested millions of Brazilian poor people without a judgment, any kind of judgment. They are imprisoned with no judgment at all. The left parties are committed to attack this system, this police. And they are doing, on the contrary, a defense of the repression apparatus, a defense of police system. That is our problem about the moderate left. And Diego talked about Socialism and Freedom Party, PSOL. It's an international phenomenon too. It's like the Podemos, or in Greece, Syriza. This kind of party has the function of divide the workers and to put an end on the class struggle. It's not more the class that is important, but gender, but race, and not in a disruptive form, not in a revolutionary form, but as a demand that through the elections this part can some way radically change. It's a hoax too. It's a hoax, not like the hoaxes of right wing, but it's a hoax. We have to deal with this. We need to describe correctly the left wing, the right wing, the Brazilian system, the US system, the England system, to understand what can be done to modify that. I have another subject matter. Just a minute. I will find. The left parties that followed the steps of conservatives are in some kind of trap they cannot avoid. The elections in São Paulo is controlled by the mass media, and they have no interest in promote any kind of debate. There isn't any kind of debate in municipal elections this year. There is no possibility to know who is the candidate that represents that or those politics. It's an additional problem that we have to manage with it. And the left parts are probably thinking that they want to preserve the democracy, the elections, because Bolsonaro wants the end of democracy at any level. But the population has no confidence in the left parties, and they know that democracy failed, and they want a new perspective to fight against the layoffs, the low wages, etc. The left parts, the left movements want to show an alternative, not elections, because the people don't believe in elections more. And Bolsonaro has explored this skepticism of population, and there is a realistic basis on it. We have to recognize. Well, we are finishing this video. We have so much more to discuss, but we'll be back next month. I say goodbye, and Diego, make your final remarks too.
Yeah. Thank you. I was afraid we were gonna end now. Just let me just say only a few more words. Yes. So Bolsonaro has publicly exploited the the fear of the fear in society, the fear of the left, the fear of the ghost of communism. He has publicly exploited the fear in the hearts and minds of people. That's one of the reasons he won the election. For you to have an idea, he even consulted with his associates and some of his ministers. He consulted them about whether it was possible to install a coup. This is not fake news. This news was in our mainstream media, and the left did nothing. Well, let's be honest, let's be fair, they did something. They wrote a note of protest. How cute. That's what the left did. Um, I the way I see, as Luis has mentioned, the left worldwide is following a peculiar agenda. They are changing from um, social uh, fairness and global social equality to a policy of political consumerism. What is political consumerism? Well, instead of fighting, instead of struggling for equal rights to society, let's focus on specific niches of society. Let's focus on blacks, let's focus on minorities, let's focus on the LGBT topics, the women's rights. Please don't get me wrong, they are important. They are extremely important. But the problem of the matter is you have to deal with them with the awareness, with the conscience that they are problems related to capitalism and to the capitalist system. If it weren't if it weren't because of our of the way society is organized in the capitalistic world, these people wouldn't be so unfairly treated. And the left, instead of denouncing that the major problem is the political system, they instead prefer to follow individual agendas. That's why I call it political consumerism, because then you create a mass of people who become consumers of your political ideals, and not participants but consumers, people that consume your political idea. Well, to close up my to round up my arguments here and also say farewell to you, I'd like to finish with a quote I like a lot, from Eugene Debs, which was one of the greatest American socialists that the United States has ever given birth to. But before this quote, just a remark. Um, the left worldwide is, as Luis mentioned, concerned with maintaining the status quo, is concerned with suppressing dissidents, is concerned with silencing any opposition inside the left. And that's why this quote from Eugene Debs is so valid for nowadays. It is as follows: while there is a lower class, I am in it. While there is a criminal element, I am of it. And while there is a soul in prison, I am not free. That's what the left should really think of.
We'll be back next month.